Thank you so much for joining me today. Whether you are returning or this is your first time here, welcome. Today's topic is very near and dear to me. It is something that I have recently come to understand. A lot of times throughout our lives, we are able to recall situations, and when we recall them, it's as though they have happened to us. I've said this in a previous episode that you will recall how you were treated, you will recall how you felt, but you don't really know how people are experiencing you. And I have noticed that there are things in my life that have been shown to me as I've been on this healing journey that I actually didn't have to go through. And that's a very hard realization for someone like me who believes that everything that has happened in my life was meant to happen. I have learned as I've grown that there are many different paths to get to a destination. And the thing about that is there's really no set destination, because the journey is the destination. The things that are activated within you through pressure, through trials and tribulations, the strength that is activated within you, the wisdom, the lessons. So that's really what it's all about, those experiences. However, God brought something to me recently, and it was shown to me, it was told to me by the Holy Spirit. You know that you don't have to go through what you go through, but you go through it because you refuse to listen. You refuse to trust what you know, that inner knowing within you, that intuitive feeling, that voice of God that is speaking to you, and most times through you to you. You ignore because you don't want to believe what is in front of you. And it contributes to a lot of your own pain. Now, when I say you, I'm speaking about myself. And that was very hard for me to accept and absorb. Now, on this journey of healing and growth and forgiveness, it's hard to forgive other people. But what about when it's time to forgive yourself? Recently, actually, as of this morning, I had a relationship that I set myself free from. And how I set myself free was, first I had to go over the situation. And it took a while because the relationship ended in 2020. And it was devastating. I have said that relationship, it broke me in ways that years and years and years, a life of abuse could not. It was a relationship that completely took away my voice and my will to fight for myself or my experience, my truth. I would describe it as, in the past, they would have farms. I know they had them in Jamaica. They would have these plantations throughout the world, but they throughout, there are other places, but I know specifically they had them in Jamaica for sure, where they would take slaves that couldn't be broken. Like bucks, they couldn't break them down. They wouldn't listen. They couldn't break them down the way that they wanted to get them to be subservient and submissive. And so they would take them to these special farm plantations, I guess you would call it, and they would torture them. They would break them down emotionally. They would break them down sexually. They would rape them, they would beat them, they would torture them, they would break them down mentally and emotionally. This experience with this relationship that I had felt like that for me. And it's like, well, how could you compare that to that? That's how awful it was. And a lot of what I dealt with in that relationship also dealt with race. It dealt with rape. It dealt with sex trafficking. It dealt with abuse that was so awful that I was like, okay, I feel like I've been here before. I feel like I've gone through this shit in a past life. It dealt with colorism. It dealt with racism. It dealt with so much shit. And it was an interracial relationship that I was in. And I was like, I feel like I've gone through this before. This is like some ancestral type shit. Like, this is crazy. Like, this cannot be my life. And so after that relationship, I just broke. I stopped speaking about my experiences in terms of the depths of them, what I was truly going through. I was so traumatized by that relationship that the night that I left, I peed the bed. I'm a grown woman and I peed the bed. I was just so traumatized. And it wasn't like, oh, I couldn't get out of bed, so I wet myself. It was like I literally pissed the bed. I was just so traumatized. And it just broke me in ways that I didn't know was possible. I experienced rape after that relationship, about a year after, and I didn't even go to the police. I literally went home and sat in the tub and bathed myself and tried to tell myself, we're not going to let this one break us. And what's the point of going to the police? You know, it's going to be your word against theirs. We've already been there before. Let's just keep going. And it was like I was just silenced. And I got used to being silent. I got used to not fighting anymore because I was so tired of just being not heard and being in situations where I was being hurt and no one saw the hurt. They just saw what I was reaping out of it, or what they assumed was benefiting me. Last night, a conversation about colorism came up, and I talked about my experience with colorism and that it's been very painful for me. And it's a subject that I'm very sensitive about. And somehow that conversation led me to that relationship, which I've dealt with colorism, my whole life. But for some reason, this relationship really brought up things. And, you know, a lot of times, and I know I'm going to piss a few people off, and that is all right with me. Because at this point, after the breakthrough I had, I don't give a damn. Okay? I'm just going to tell you. So if your feelings get hurt, you know, I'm going to show you some grace. But if you want to come at me about this, I really don't give a fuck. I'm just, respectfully, my fucks are in my back pocket and they're not coming out for a while. Okay? So, I remember being, you know, when you're light skinned, they tell you have this light skin privilege and your life is easier because you're light skinned and all of these things. And I know that light skin privilege exists. What is devastating to me is when someone tells me my life is easier because I'm light skinned, when it has been everything but that, you know. And it hurts because I feel like it invalidates everything that I've been through. And it's like you're looking at me and you're telling me the privilege that you assume that I have, or that I've benefited from, and you have no idea what the fuck I'm going through. And when I was in that relationship, there were women who were of a darker complexion who saw me living in this big house and thinking, oh, she's here, she's got it better, and judging me and not knowing the amount of abuse that I was going through. And it hurt me because it was like, you don't see me. You see what you assume is privilege, and you don't know. Now, in context, it's a lot deeper than what I'm saying of why these women were looking at me this way. There's more to the story. I will tell you about it another time. I'm not going to talk too much about that relationship, but there was a reason why they were looking at me this way. And why they were in that position to make these assumptions. So, in going through this and in my process of healing, I had to not only recognize how I was treated and go over that and come to forgiveness about that and come to a peace about it. I had to forgive myself, because in realizing that a lot of things I didn't have to go through, I recognized that I put myself in that position. Meaning, what I was seeking out from a place of desperation, a place of lack, a place of sadness, a place of low self-esteem, a place of trauma, of ego, of fear, of pride. I walked into a situation that tried to kill my soul, and recognizing with accountability that this was something that I willingly walked into without knowing. It was like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I had no idea that this was what I was walking into. And in walking into it from such a low and dark place, I was met with a beast. And it's very painful. It was almost like sacrificing myself for what I thought I needed. And really all I got back was pain. Now, in no way am I taking accountability for what someone else has done to me. But how did I show up? When I got into this relationship, what was I looking for? When I got into this relationship, what did I overlook? There were many red flags that were in my face. Boom, here's a clear one. This man that I was dating was German. I was at his house one day, and this is before I moved in with him. I'm at his house and I'm cleaning the dishes. I'm about to cook. I have a knife. I think I was been cutting up something. And I looked at the sink, and there was a mammy, a mammy porcelain soap dish on his sink. And it shocked the shit out of me so bad that I dropped the knife in the sink. I was shook. And anyone who doesn't know what a mammy is, it's like a porcelain made. A mammy would be like a kind of like a house slave, like the person that works the kitchen. Think the old Aunt Jemima bottles, right? They're very racist to have. And this man had it as a soap dish. That was a clear fucking flag. And it was so in my face that I literally dropped the knife because I was so shocked. Do you know how I justified that? I said, well, he's German. Maybe he doesn't know, the history of this. Maybe he doesn't know how this affects me. Okay, let's not jump to conclusions. I didn't even ask him about it. I just let it go. There were there was so much. There were things that were said. There were relationships of that he would tell me about, of people that he had been with. And every girl that he had been with came from some type of broken home, or had been through some type of trauma, had been in something really bad, and he always made it seem like he was their saving grace. And I asked him, I said, is every woman that you've been with been through something, awful? Don't get me wrong, we all go through trauma, but what was very odd is everyone's story was very similar. All of us had a similar story of trauma. All of us had been through something similar. It was very fucking weird. But that is what a lot of men like him would do. They prey on women, especially, and white women go through things too. But it's something about when you a black woman with trauma, you are so forgotten about. And if you are a black overweight woman with trauma, they really don't give a fuck about you. Nobody's gonna come when you're screaming. Nobody's gonna come when you're breaking down, because they don't give a fuck. Okay, that's not always the situation, but a lot of times it is. That a lot of times the narrative is the reaction. And that stuck out to me. I said nothing. That was odd, but I said nothing. It pointed out to me. I spoke to him about it. That was a red flag. There were so many red flags. Not even just red flags, bro. Like, things that were just so clear in my face. But because I had someone that was treating me kind, because I had someone who was treating me differently than what I had been treated, because it felt like, okay, well, maybe this is something that can benefit me, I overlooked. My problem wasn't just choosing from the mind and heart of someone who was used to abuse, which doesn't excuse it. When you're so used to abuse, when you've experienced abuse for so long, there's a sense of normalcy to it because it's familiar. Doesn't excuse it, but you know it. The best way I can explain that is, I used to say back in the day, I know how to survive, but I don't know how to live. And people didn't understand that. And I said, I know how to survive. I know how to make it on the street. I know how to take care of myself on the street. I know how to survive. I know how to hustle. I know how to get money. I know how to survive. I know how to exist. But I had to be taught how to live, how to come out of that. There's a song by Nipsey Hussle called Stuck in the Grind. And I'm going to play that. And I want you guys to listen to a clip of it and what he's talking about. Being stuck in the grind, being stuck in what you're used to, stuck in survival, and trying to do something different, trying to learn different than what you know. So I want you guys to take a listen to this song really quick.
The city skyline, getting sky high. Took the little bitch to Popeye. She was top 5. Excitement that she get from pop life could never top mine. Once you get the hustle locked down, you can stockpile. Level up another notch now, like a stock now. Every time I take the top down, she arch her eyebrows. Turning up the music hot now, she feel alive now. Love me like we from a small town, let's make them all round. You splurge, I splurge. We ball later and we ball now. Stuck in the grind. I'm stuck in the grind.
So, how am I my own problem and my own solution? Recognizing the things that I have overlooked for filling a void. Recognizing the ways that I sacrificed my well-being. Because that's what you do when you overlook things that are warning you in your face. You are sacrificing your well-being. You're not protecting you. And there are some things that are out of your control. This is not black and white. This is very gray. There's some things that are out of your control, that there was nothing you could have done. A lot of times, especially as a victim, you blame yourself because it's easier to inflict that pain of guilt on yourself than to put it on the person it belongs to, because you feel like they've gone and lived their life. So you're not going to see them get that pain, or that almost you're not receiving your justice. And so it's like, well, you want the blame to be felt subconsciously, and you end up putting it on yourself. I'm not doing that. What I am saying is that I have betrayed my own trust by overlooking things that were being shown to me to protect me. And it wasn't just this situation. There were a lot of situations where I overlooked what was in front of me, because what I was trying to get out of the situation, whether it was emotional or physical or whatever it was that I was seeking, whatever void I wanted to be filled, I lost myself in the process. So how do I become my solution? Recognizing how I showed up. Feeling it. Not berating myself. Showing myself grace. The same understanding and grace that I would show to someone else that I'm trying to forgive. And forgiving myself. Forgiving myself for where I was in that point emotionally. Forgiving myself for where I was in my actions. Forgiving myself for where I was operating out of my ego. And forgiving myself for not being kind enough to myself, to love myself enough through that, to know that I didn't deserve what I received. It has been a process, and today I have finally been set free. Today I feel like I've been restored from a part of me that died in 2020. That she's been resurrected and renewed and rejuvenated. And I want to say that a lot of times our hurt is our blueprint for how we make decisions a lot of times when it goes unhealed. And when you don't know better, because it's what you've seen. And like I said, you can become used to the chaos because you know how to maneuver through it. In healing, to become your own solution, be accountable for how you showed up, not for the actions of others, not even for their reactions, but be forgiving, be graceful, be kind, be gracious to you that you were then when you showed up, when you operated, and even those things where you felt like I didn't have to go through this. Be gracious to yourself, because no part of your journey is going to go to waste. Every single thing that you've gone through is going to be used for not only your growth, for the lives of others, to inspire, to uplift, but also to break generational curses. It's like there's 5 different roads to get to the next part of your journey, the next chapter. And you can take any one of these paths, and you're going to go through things on this path. But it's not a waste. It's not a waste. You may have been able to go a different way, and you may have not had to go through those situations. And then some situations you're meant to go through, right? But our free will, our choices, our decisions, no matter what emotion they're operating out of, make ripple effects. And you have to be open to the fact that sometimes you didn't show up as your best. Throughout my life, I have self-sabotaged myself beyond what I can count and beyond what I'd like to fathom, in ways that were simple and in others that were not. And something came to me last night, and it was like, I don't know how to give up. I'm so persistent. I'm persistent to a fault. I don't know how to give up because all I know how to do is keep moving. And so because I knew that I can get through anything, I would intentionally throw roadblocks into my journey, subconscious throwing them out there to stop me, to slow me down from getting to where I go because I was afraid. I was my own problem. And now how I choose to be my own solution is by trusting what I know. God has given me a gift of intuition and of foresight, and I have to trust what I'm shown, whether it makes sense or not. Knowing does not always have physical evidence. Some shit you just know. That's where God and you are, where it won't make sense to anybody else. If you know it, you know what you know, and don't let nobody talk you into anything different, whether it be about a person, a situation, whatever. If you know what you know, trust it. Trust the you that nobody else did. Be to you what you always needed, and people did not show up as that for you. I have to believe me. I have to protect me. I have to love me. I have to support me. I have to listen to me and not silence me, the part of me that is saying, this is not right. Something is off. This is not okay. I have to be that to me, because my biological mother wasn't, my biological father wasn't, and in the process, I was hurt a lot. To be my own solution requires me to be everything that I need, whether it was from others or just myself. To be what I need for me, and to be okay with being fulfilled internally, opposed to seeking it outwardly. To recognize that I have the power within me, because God is within me, to change my path, and that grace is the only thing that has carried me through and is required for me to give myself to progress in this journey that is my destination. Well, it has been a pleasure to share my truth with you today. Thank you for listening and opening your ears and your mind and your heart to hear me and receive me today. And I ask that as you go about your day, that you ask yourself one question. Am I showing up as my own problem, or am I showing up as a solution? to my pain? It's a hard question to ask, and it may not give an answer right away. Let it marinate in your spirit if it needs to. It's all right. It's like some good mojo on some chicken. Let it get tender in your spirit. And really give a truthful answer. That's an answer that you get to keep within you. No judgment. And then another question is, are you judging you? Why? And what makes you think that you deserve that? These are questions that I leave you with, questions that I've had to answer on my own. I hope that these questions bring answers that bring on solutions to your life and to the chapters that are set to come. Until we meet again, like this, I hope. Thank you for tuning in.